guys, it's Natasha and welcome to my random channel. Today's video, in the spirit of Mental Health Awareness Month, which was May, not June, I'm going to be telling the story of my experience in a mental unit in a hospital. It's going to be a fun video. So it's going to kind of be all over the place. I just have like a list of notes to read off of, so yeah, it's not much of an order to it, but like just bear with me, follow along, it'll all work out. Okay, so some background information. This took place in 2013. It was right after surgery I had that like cured my superior mesenteric artery syndrome, which, if you didn't watch my other story time, is basically when your duodenum is being crushed by your superior mesenteric artery, and it's really painful and really difficult to eat. And after the surgery I was still, I guess, kind of traumatized and really scared of food. So after like a few weeks of that at like a normal hospital, they decided that they couldn't really do anything like medically, so they sent me over to another hospital that had an adolescent psychiatric unit. So yeah, I went there. They like put me in an ambulance and we drove a couple hours over to the other hospital, and I got there. They brought me like straight into my room. I had to like sign this paperwork basically saying that I would like follow all their rules and that they could treat me for, I think, 3 weeks. And I thought it was kind of weird that like they forced you to sign it. Like, I don't know, it just felt kind of sketchy. Like you had to give them permission, but you were like being forced to give them permission to treat you. It was weird. And then even after 3 weeks I had to like renew it, so it's not like the 3 weeks are up and I could go home. They're like made me sign a whole other set of papers after the 3 weeks are over. So it was just very weird. I didn't really like it. And after the paperwork, they had to draw blood, and the nurse that did it had no idea what she was doing, so she spent like 20 minutes fishing around with a needle in my arm. That was not fun. That was like the first time that's ever happened to me. I mean, it's happened since then, but that was just the worst because it was the first time and it was like in a new scary place, and they were not even being nice about it. So yeah, no, I was not looking forward to staying here. They also took anything I had with me that could be used to like harm myself or others. So like I couldn't wear sweatshirts because they had like strings. I couldn't wear sneakers. They took my razors, my tweezers, nail clippers, just really random things like that. I think they also took away like pens and pencils, but you could like kind of earn them back as you went along, which I'll get into. So let me just describe like the layout of the unit. It was kind of, so like you walk in and there's a hallway and there's like 2 sets of doors, and you need like a card or something to scan in or out. Like it was like pretty high security. You could not like sneak out as much as we tried. So you walk down the hallway and like on your left is the dining room area, which is just like a plain white room with like a long table and chairs, and then it had like a whiteboard on one side. And then the next room over was like a playroom. That room was actually pretty cool. They had like toys, games, like arts and crafts stuff, but it was all locked up. And a TV and an Xbox, which was also locked up. And then like tables and chairs and like couches, and it could be fun. And then like on the right was this little nook. It was kind of like a phone booth, but it was built into the wall, and that's like where the telephone was that like we could use. I just remember like when you like talked on the phone, like you like closed the door and it was like kind of private. And then at the end of the hallway there was this big like living room, which was basically, I think it had like one big couch and then like maybe like a few chairs around. There was probably a table, I don't really remember, but I remember there was like a huge television set on like the back wall. And then the wall behind the couch had this little like pharmacy, which was kind of like a big window where like the nurses would be behind there, and that's like where all the medication was held. So like when they called you up to get your medicine every day you'd have to like go up to that window and take it there. And then I don't remember how many rooms there were. There were definitely less than 10. But yeah, so like all around the living room was just like, they were just bedrooms, and they were all singles, and they all had ensuite bathrooms. So you had your own bathroom, but of course it was locked. And there was one room that was a double. I also forgot to mention that there was a quiet room. I think it was actually the first room, like when you walked in, so right before you got to the dining room. So that's basically the layout. And then when I first got there, I think that night something happened, like I threw up or something, and so they had to send me over to like the regular hospital, which wasn't like a different hospital, it was just like a different unit of the same hospital. And yeah, I remember like kind of being excited because I like had some freedom from like all the rules and like strictness of being in that place, even though I'd only been there for like a few hours. I already hated it. But yeah, no, I really didn't have any freedom because they gave me a babysitter. So I was still under watch by like one of their employees 24/7, even when I wasn't in their unit. It was either like one of their staff members or a nurse from either unit. And yeah, no, I was never alone. It was really annoying. And then I had to like get permission to talk on the phone, but I couldn't use like my own phone. I had to use the nurse's phone, like in the nurse's station. But I could also like go around the hospital in a wheelchair though, which was also weird. Yeah, so like I could go down to like the gift shop. I think I went to like the chapel a couple times. And then down the hall, because this was like a children's hospital, they had a lot of play areas, so I got to like go down there. And that room had like a TV. That's actually where like I started watching Rebo. I used to like watch that all the time when I was in the hospital. And they had a bunch of games, and then there were always like different kids. I think this was the teen floor, so like the kids that were there were like around my age. And I remember I met this girl who I was playing categories with, and we kind of got to talking, and she was apparently also in the outpatient mental health unit. I think she had an eating disorder, and it was really weird because like we were just talking about our experiences, and she sounded like so similar to like me and my experiences that I almost kind of started thinking like maybe this was an actual eating disorder and not just like a result of a medical issue. So yeah, that was interesting. I still don't really know what to say about that. I remember she said that like they had threatened her with like having to put her in inpatient if she didn't eat, and she had this one meal where she couldn't finish it and she just started crying. And that had like just happened to me like a little while ago, where I ordered something that like I really thought I was gonna like. Turns out I didn't like it and I couldn't finish it, and then my stomach started hurting, and I just started like crying because I was like, I'm never gonna get home like if I don't eat. And that was really scary. And so we just kind of like related on that level, and it was interesting. Yeah, so I think it was a few days or like a week later that I got moved back to the psych unit. And now I'm going to talk about the daily schedule and just kind of like the rules of the place. So you wake up really early in the morning. I think it was like around 6 in the morning. I remember it still being dark out. And a random nurse that I don't even think it was one that you would see during the day. She was just like there early in the morning. She would wake you up, and you had like, I think like 15 minutes to go to the bathroom, like brush your teeth and shower, and then they would weigh you, but you weren't allowed to look at how much you weighed, which was really sketchy, and I'll get into that later. But then you had to get dressed and make your bed and be outside in like the living room by a certain time. And then while you were there waiting for like the morning meeting, the nurses would call you at like the little pharmacy area, and you'd have to go like one by one, take your medication. They like made sure that you took it and blah blah blah. And then you had like the group morning meeting, and they would all like go around and like make sure that like you fixed your bed and that your room was clean. And if it wasn't, you had to go back and do it. And I remember there were a couple of times when I just like didn't feel like doing it. And depending on like who was running the meeting, some of them wouldn't actually care, but like the ones who would like give you a hard time about it. And then you had to go to breakfast, and then after that was group therapy or individual therapy depending on the day. And then it was lunch, and then there was usually like a group activity, which was always something fun. Like they had like different arts and crafts or games. And then you had dinner and like a nightly meeting and free time where you could play games if you had the privilege, you could do crafts if you had the privilege, you could, you know, like read your books, you could watch a movie, especially if it was like if you had like a bunch of people you want to watch a movie with, that was like okay. Yeah, so if you wanted to like use anything, you had to ask for permission, and they had to like go and unlock it for you, so it wasn't like anyone could do whatever they wanted during free time. And then usually at like the nightly meetings, they would pass out the sheet of paper and you would have to like circle all the food that you wanted for all 3 of your meals the next day. And then if you were on like a eating disorder regimen, they would increase your meals every day, just like increase your calories. So I always had to like pick more and more every day just so I would like gain weight. And that got really annoying because there was food there that I didn't like, and so I had to end up picking like things that I knew I wasn't going to eat, and then I knew that they were going to force me to eat it anyway. And then it was bedtime, and for me, I remember I had like a staff person come in, and like if I couldn't sleep, they would read off like this progressive muscle relaxation thing, and like that always helped me go to bed. And then every hour, which took a lot of getting used to because if you're a light sleeper, it's gonna wake you up. Every hour, a nursing staff person would open your door and make sure that you were asleep and then close it every hour. It was so obnoxious. Like, you just wouldn't even get any sleep if you weren't used to that. Like, that was ridiculous. But yeah. And then, I don't know, there were also some fun times. So I got to sign up for like a masseuse. And so like once a week, this lady would come and just give me a massage. It was really cool. And then there were like 2 of us who were Catholic, and so like a priest would come on Sundays and just give us communion. Like, and then because it was like still during the school year, during the day, a tutor would come in, just one, to teach all of us at like different grade levels. I also had my school sending me over homework, so I was catching up on that while I was there. But the tutor would just come and like teach us like basic things. He would like quiz us. I remember it was this other kid and I who were like the smartest in the class, and we would like always ace all like the trivia quizzes, and everyone thought we were like geniuses. It was hilarious. But yeah, and then I like school because not only was I impressing all of my fellow inmates, but I also got to use the laptop. So I had internet access for that like short amount of time, those few hours. And I could go on like, I think there were only specific websites you can go on. Like you couldn't use social media, but I could go on Gmail and talk to people. So I would like email my friends and like let them know like where I was, because I hadn't had time to like tell anyone where I was going before I left. And you can also like chat on Gmail. So yeah, that was like my link to the outside world. That was fun. So the rules. So like I said earlier, everything was locked up. We had to get permission, and your bathroom was also locked. So if you ever had to go to the bathroom, no matter when it was, you needed to have a staff person or a nurse come and unlock your bathroom, and then they would grab a chair, because there was always like a chair in your room, and like sit there with the door open and listen to you go to the bathroom. It was the creepiest thing and just the worst. I don't know, it was so weird. And because I had like been there for a while, after a while, they kind of stopped. Like they would like leave it open like a little bit and like stand out there or whatever, but like in the beginning, like they would just open the door and just like sit there and sometimes just stare at you. It was really weird and really uncomfortable. And just, I don't know, I thought it was unnecessary. I mean, I guess it's not, like, they have their rules for a reason, but I was so mad about that. You also had to eat all of your food, whether you were on the eating disorder regimen or not. You had to eat all of your food, even if you didn't like it. And they would sit there, the mental health workers, and just watch you eat as long as it took. And if it took longer, like, everyone else would leave, like, they would like get dismissed, and you would still be there eating your food, and they would be sitting there with you. And depending on the person, it could either be like really nerve-wracking because they're really mean, or like they'd be nice. So they would force you to eat, and then if you couldn't finish it, like, they would like time you, which is another thing. Like, I'm a really slow eater, so I was always like the last one, whether I was hungry or not. And if you didn't finish your food by a certain time, or you just flat out refused, they would feed you Ensure. And it's hilarious now, like, looking back at it, but like at the time, Ensure was like the devil. Like, everyone knew if you like had to drink Ensure, they would force you to do it either like in front of other people or like on your own. It tasted awful. It like made me feel sick, and it was like the worst punishment you could have gotten. And it was just so funny because like everyone talked about it like it was like this awful thing, and like, oh my god, they had to drink Ensure. It was really weird. But yeah, no, so I hate that. And like, I see it in like CVS or something now, and I'm just like, I cringe. I can't be anywhere near that. Yeah. And then what else? Oh, you also had visiting hours, so that took some getting used to, because like in the hospital, like my parents, especially my mom, were like always with me, and I got used to that. So like here, my mom could like only visit at certain times, and she was staying like at the Ronald McDonald House. I think it was like across the street, so she wasn't that far, and she would come every day. And everyone like really got to know her. Like, people would call her mom. It was fun, but I just didn't like how like she could only be there for an hour, I think, every day. Okay, so then there was the quiet room, and I kind of talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but it was a place where they took you if you needed to be alone, because you were never alone like anywhere. But this was like if you needed to like be away from the other kids, like mostly kids who threw tantrums, which were usually like the 7-8-year-olds. They would get put into the quiet room. And I remember like there were rumors about like what would happen to them in there, because not all of us had ever even been there. It's usually a place you went when you were like in huge trouble, like you needed solitary confinement, and they would like leave you in there for like maybe a half hour or so. But I think there's always a nursing staff person or a mental health person there. So yeah, one day I remember asking a nurse if I could just like go to the quiet room, because I'm an introvert. I can't be around people like 24/7. I just needed like some space. So she was like really confused and like really taken aback, like, you want to go to the quiet room? Why? You haven't done anything. And I was like, I just really need some space. Like, I just need my alone time. So she was like, okay, sure, let's go to the quiet room. So she like took me back there, and it was just like this small room, like pretty tiny. It was just like bare white, and there was just a huge like exercise ball in the middle, and I just sat there, didn't really say much, and I just kind of enjoyed my quiet time until she was like, okay, we should go back now. So yeah, pretty uneventful. But I don't know, I think I expected it to be like padded walls and like straight jackets and stuff, and it was just a room with nothing in it. So yeah, that was the quiet room. And then the only other rule is that you couldn't leave, like, no matter what. You couldn't go to like another part of the hospital, you couldn't go outside, you couldn't even open a window. That was the weirdest part for me, because like when I finally got to leave, I had no idea what it was even like to be outside. Like, I was so excited, and then it was like freezing because it was middle of February. I think if I had to change something, would definitely be to like let us open a window, or like take us outside once in a while, like they do in movies, like a little field trip. I don't know, but like just having us locked in that little place for however long we were there was just not good. Okay, so then there were certain privileges, and the way that privileges worked was you were on different like little, I guess there would be like security levels depending on like how bad your condition was and like what you actually had. And so certain people could use like games and like crafts, and we made a lot of like string bracelets, like friendship bracelets, TV, like all of those were privileges. And there were also levels that you could move up in. So you would start out at like the basic level, and then if you were like good for like a week or something, you could move up to the next one, and like the next one. I think there were like 4 stages. And when you got to like the last one, you had to like get recommendation letters from like the staff, and you had to write an essay on like why you deserve to be like at the top. It was really weird. And so the privileges that I had where I got to, I think, shave and like pluck my eyebrows once a week, but I had to like have someone in there with me, of course. I got to use a laptop with the internet during school. I think I did get to play Xbox, but they didn't really have like great games, so I didn't play much. I also got to watch movies, usually like with other people. I got to talk on the phone, and the phone calls were funny because only family could call you. So like if a friend called you or something, they had to say that like they were your brother or sister or cousin, and people would like leave and like make friends there because, you know, we were stuck there. What else would you do? And then like call back. And so like sometimes people would like answer the phone, and we were the only ones I think who could answer the phones. I'm not 100% sure, but I remember like, you know, you'd like answer the phone, like clearly recognize someone's voice, and they'd be like, yeah, I'm so-and-so's like brother or sister, and you have to like pretend and be like, yeah, so your brother or your sister's calling, like tell them I said hi or something weird. I don't know. It was funny because like clearly like you knew who they were. I think visitors could also only be family, but you could also lie and say you were family. Like they weren't that strict on it. And also the top level, you could run the meetings. And what's really interesting about my experience is that I like never actually went through, like I think I stopped at like a certain level, but then like I didn't really feel like writing an essay and like doing all this stuff just to get to the last level. But I had been there for so long, I think I was there for like 2 months, that they were just like, yeah, you can do these things. So I would just run like all the meetings, especially because I was the oldest after a while, like people kept leaving. That was always fun. Like I always got along with like certain members of the mental health staff because I think like I was older, like they're pretty young. I think they were like in their 20s. And it was just fun. Like they just like kind of let me do what I wanted sometimes. Okay, so on that note, let's talk about the staff. So I'll start with the good ones. There were ones that were easy to talk to. There were ones that like just would hang out with you and just talk about whatever. I mean, that was kind of their job, but I feel like a few of them like really liked us, you know? And when we got into making friendship bracelets, there was one who made me a bracelet that I still have. And there was like some good nurses. The one who brought me into the quiet room was really nice. I would like talk to her sometimes. Okay, on the other side, there were the evil nurses and staff members. The head psychiatrist, I don't remember her name, but she was awful. And she was the one who decided like when you left. And so you would meet with her, I think once a week, and she would like evaluate you. And a lot of people would like ask her if they could go home, and she would mostly always say no, but she was just kind of like the warden, and we were all scared of her. We all hated her. She was mean, like she wasn't even nice. And the worst was like when she knew how badly you wanted to go home and she would just not care. Like other people who worked there would at least try to be sympathetic. She just didn't give a shit. Like it was awful. And then there was another nurse. I do remember her name, but I don't know if I can say it, so I'm gonna call her Mandy. And Mandy was mean and bitter, and it's not even like she was, I don't know why she was so mean, but she would yell at me all the time. If she was the one who had to sit with me while I finished eating, she would just constantly be like giving me crap about it. She didn't care if I felt sick. She would yell at me when I threw up, which Like, you don't do that if you're a nurse. Like, that's your job. You deal with it. I remember one time I saw the feeding tube and I like threw up the feeding tube by accident, and she went and told on me and said that I did it on purpose, that I had like pulled it out, which is ridiculous. Like, that thing was stuck, like that thing was pushed all the way into my intestines. There was no way I could have pulled it out on purpose. And even if I could, I wouldn't have. That would have been so painful. And like, I wouldn't want to go through the process of putting it back in. So that was ridiculous. But I don't know if they believed her, but she was just like that. One time I had to get x-rays or something, and she was the one who wheeled me down there. And at one point, she just like rammed me into a door, and I said, ow, and she yelled at me for that. Like, I don't know why she was such a bitch, but I hated her. And then there was a mental health professional. He was my first babysitter when I was in the regular unit, and you could just tell that he hated his job and not like he didn't actually like any of us, and he was just like too cool to be there. Like, he was obnoxious, and he never talked. Like, the other ones like tried to get to know us and like, you know, had conversations. He just kind of like sat there and like hated us. And if we ever like try to talk to him, he had like no emotions. Like, I don't know why he was there. So those were the bad people who didn't like us. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about like other patients, but I'm gonna get more into that here. So I'll start with the weird people, and I feel kind of bad saying that because like it was a mental health unit, but at the same time it was a mental health unit. Like, you know, they're gonna run into like some odd people. So let's talk about the weird ones. There was this boy who had to drink Ensure every night, and I think that was like a punishment because he was like not very well behaved, and he was like quiet, and I thought he was nice. Like, we kind of got along, but he would just say like the creepiest things out of nowhere and for no reason. And I don't know, like, it was just like creepy things like that I'm not gonna repeat, but still burned into my memory. Like, no, he was weird. Oh my god. Then there was this other boy who taught me not to be too nice to people. He was kind of an outcast in the group, and so like I would kind of just like be nice to him. He was like a little younger, and I think I was like the only person there who was nice. Like, I wasn't, you know, like actively trying to be his friend, but like I wasn't being mean to him. And he just became obsessed with me, and it got so bad that they had to talk to him about it like every day. And it started off with like just, you know, saying like nice things, like whatever, things that I could like brush off. And then it got to, he would write me notes and leave them in my room. And one like major rule was that you were not allowed in like each other's rooms for any reason. And so the fact that he could like sneak in there and like leave notes on my bed was really weird. Like, I would come back and find them and be like, what the heck? And have to like report him. And then he started saying like really creepy things that I'm also not going to get into, but that I also had to report. Yeah, that was not okay. And then he was the only person there, as long as I was there, who actually said to the psychiatrist that he did not want to leave because he wanted to stay there because I was there. They let him go like immediately. Like, that was so weird. And then there was this other girl who came in when I was there for a while. She was also a little bit younger than me, and she would constantly talk about like being depressed and suicidal and like cutting herself, but the way she would say it would like make you think that she was lying. Like, she was almost bragging about it, and then like a lot of times her stories didn't always add up either. So I'm not really sure what was actually wrong with her, but I feel like she was really like just looking for attention. Oh my god. And then there was this girl. If you've ever seen Girl Interrupted, I think it's Angelina Jolie's character who like keeps leaving and coming back and acting like she like owns the place. That was this girl, like to a T. She had the exact same attitude. She would like boss people around. She thought that she like lived there. When I met her, she like came in after me, but apparently that was like not her first time. And then like I remember she left and also came back while I was there. And I think she at one point had also stayed at like the worst mental health like unit. It was like a hospital or something that was in the same town, and it was really where they put like the bad kids. So she had like spent some time there, and also just like came back here. And I don't even remember like what was wrong with her. Like we would always like talk about what our problems were, like while we were there. I don't remember why she was there, but she was a character. No one really liked her. And then there was the people that I was close with. So the first one, she lived in the double, and I think we started off at like the same time. She was pretty young, but I think she had like some depression issues, and she was so sweet. She was the one who like tried to like get us all to bond all the time. Like she was like really into bonding, and she like made us all like friendship bracelets. She like made this all into like a club. Like I feel like she was like really trying to make the best out of this. And she really like considered us all family, which was really great. And even after she left, the family that she started like continued and like grew, and we all like just, I don't know, like we felt closer because of her. Like she was really great. And then the other person was her roommate. She was, I think they're like around the same age. She was definitely a lot feistier. Like she I think was there for anger issues or something. Like she was constantly disrespecting the staff. She had no regard for anyone, but she was like ride or die. Like if you were her friend, she would do anything for you, and I happen to be one of her friends. So yeah, she was like always like defending me, always watching out for me, especially like with the feeding tube. She was constantly watching to like make sure that there was like enough food in it. And then another friend who I think was also part of like the original family. We were the ones who were like the smartest in the class and like the artist. So we really like bonded. I think he was like also like one of the older kids, so I think that kind of helped. But we became like really good friends, and I think he was there for anger issues. And then another girl there who I will call Ashley. We'll call her Ashley. So Ashley was an amazing musician. She taught me like some songs on the keyboard. She played piano really well, apparently. She was such a great singer. And after something happened later on, she and I ended up like writing a song together to like talk about our experience. And we had like a lot of similar issues. Like we both had mysterious stomach pains. We both had trouble with food. And at one point they even told us that like we weren't allowed to eat together. So like they always had to like separate us at meals. Like I would sit in the dining room some days and she would sit like in the playroom, and like we couldn't eat together because they thought that we were influencing each other, because our symptoms weren't there like every day, but I guess like they always happen on the same days. And that was complete coincidence. And then another friend, I'm gonna call her Erica, and Erica was there for a similar food phobia as mine. I'm not gonna get like too much into it. She was also like kind of older than the other kids, and we just became like really good friends. And it was for a while me, her, and this other boy who I'm gonna call Chris. We kind of became like the Three Musketeers. And Chris was my like little brother there. He was pretty young. I think he was like 13 or 14. And he happened to like live in the same area that I did, like in my state. And so we kind of bonded over that because we were both like from the same place. Neither of us was from that state. I think we lived like 20 minutes away from each other. So yeah, and like our parents were staying in the same Ronald McDonald house, so like they became friends. He was there for an eating disorder. He was also trans, which caused a lot of issues in his life. I remember like being like so shocked when like he only told me and Erica, like we were the only ones there who knew about this. So about a week or a few days after he got discharged, I remember my mom came and like said she had some weird dream about him, but like she wouldn't tell me what it was. And she was talking to like the mental health staff, and the next day they pulled me, Ashley, and Erica aside into like the dining room, and we had like this meeting where they basically told us that Chris was dead, that he had taken his own life. They didn't tell us how or why, but yeah, that was really hard. And we couldn't really talk about it in front of other people there, and I just had to like process that on my own, basically. Finally, about a week later, I finally got discharged, and the crazy part about that is how difficult it was to get me out of there. I found out during the process that the head psychiatrist was lying to my primary care physician back home about my weight and telling them that I only weighed like 90 something pounds. But what they didn't know was that one morning when they were weighing me, I snuck a peek at the scale and it was like in kilos, but I knew how to convert it. So when I went to school that day, I used the calculator to find out my weight, and it was actually like 107, which is more than I had ever weighed in my entire life. And so like I knew I was doing well, and I don't know why they were lying. Like they just wanted to keep me there, I guess. I have no idea why. It was all super sketchy, and I wouldn't recommend that place to anyone after that. We had to have like a bunch of family meetings with and without me. I think my family like looked into getting a lawyer. Like they already had one set up, and I think as soon as like they heard that, they discharged me because they were obviously doing some sketchy things to keep me there. I don't know if it was like about money or insurance or what, but I feel like a lot of the things they did revolved around that, like keeping or discharging kids were definitely money related. So yeah. The funny part is they didn't actually tell me when I was getting discharged. Like everyone else knew when they were leaving, but my mom just kind of like came in one day and like surprised me and was like, yeah, so like pack your things, we're going home. And that was the best day of my life. That was Valentine's Day 2013. And then they also like on my way out gave me like a tour of the outpatient facility and was like, this is what you should do when you leave, this is like what the next step is. But my mom and I were just like, no, like we're leaving, we're out of here, I'm never coming back here. I remember I was planning on like going to college in that state. Like I was really excited about this one school that I got into there. And we were gonna take a tour after I got discharged, but after everything that happened, I just could not go back there. Yeah, so that's my story of being in a mental unit in a hospital. Yeah, I wish I had like a better conclusion, but that's all I have to say. So thanks for watching. So one thing I forgot to mention was what we did for fun. We mostly just made a lot of friendship bracelets. Like I learned a lot of different weaving techniques, and that was a pretty cool pastime. And then card tricks were another one. Chris actually taught us like a bunch of really cool ones that I still try to practice. And yeah, that's pretty much it.